Jared here. Here's a mini food addiction report that really quickly looks at the scientific underpinnings of this notion of food addiction. And I just want to share with you why addiction is actually not real. I know it might seem incredibly like it is real. I work at an eating disorder center. I've been through eating struggles myself. I know the feeling of being addicted to food. I know the cravings don't go away. And I know that can seem like addiction. So it's easy to understand why you might think you're addicted. I get it. Let's quickly look at a rat study that will flip your notions of food addiction on its head. Back in the early days, rats were put in a cage. They were given water or water laced with cocaine. The scientists found that the rats would drink the cocaine water until they died. They would stop eating their other food. They would just drink the drug water. They would die. Scientists then said, this is proof that these rats, this substance cocaine, is so addictive that it will kill you. And this is how we roughly think about addiction in our society today. There's these substances that you have no control over that cause you to basically die. And this notion is just 100% false. There's a link in the report that links to a TED Talk with over 16 million views that talks about a different lab study. See, in the first lab study with mice, the mice were put in a dark cage. They had no friends. They were miserable rats. I mean, I feel bad for these rats. They were in an isolation tank for days, weeks. Of course they drank the cocaine water. But they did this similar experiment where they gave rats sunlight. They gave rats toys to play with. They had their friends around them. They had lots of that fluffy sand, not sand stuff, bark stuff, wood shavings. And the rats didn't even touch the cocaine water. So the notion that there's an addictive substance that can cause you to have addiction, it misses the underlying states of deprivation. Okay? Deprivation, there's this underlying deprivation. An emotional need is not being met, a physical need is not being met. In the rats' case, they were physically deprived of food, they're emotionally deprived of friends, sunlight. Humans are the same way. If you feel that you're a food addict, then there's some sort of deprivation going on underneath that. And this is such an empowering perspective because no longer are you a victim. It might feel like you're a victim, but this gives you direction. Previously, the only advice you're really given is either to pray or to avoid, right? And does avoidance really work? It gives you two bad choices when you believe that there are substances that cause you to be addicted. But when you kind of see that there's these underlying states of deprivation, you can then begin to concentrate on meeting those states of deprivation so you're no longer deprived. The foundation for food addiction then disappears. Now, down below in the food report, there are a few more reasons, which I'll just briefly talk about right here, for scientific, neuroscientific reasons why these states of deprivation naturally occur. They naturally occur. Okay, that's the thing. Like these things are naturally occurring, and it's so important. For example, hunger. If you do not eat enough food, if you go on a diet, or if as a kid you learned to restrict food, perhaps you had parents who might have called you fat, maybe your relatives would always ask you about your weight. And so you learned that you had to not eat certain foods. You had to avoid certain foods. There might be this fear now around food, right? This fear around food. And guess what? That's deprivation. That fear around food is actually going to make you more addicted to food. That fear, right? Have you ever felt like, here I am again, right? Here I am again with this fucking food in my mouth. That's an underlying state of deprivation. And sadly, when people eat again, then they think in their head they gotta eat less. They gotta, oh, I fucked up, I can't eat again, and it leads to more hunger. So these states of deprivation they're tricky, they're nuanced, they're painful, they're horrible. There's other reasons as well, like the lack of dopamine. Some people, food is their best friend. It is their best friend. I know that food was my best friend for years. I'd come home after college, school got out, smoke weed, eat food. It was there for me. It was predictable. It it was there. At the end of the day, it was there. And it wasn't going away. No rejection from food. So if food is your best friend, you probably lack other activities, a lifestyle that gives you dopamine. Dopamine's a chemical in your brain. If you have one source of dopamine, food's going to be damn addicting. This isn't food being addicting. This is that you only have one source of dopamine, a chemical that we need in our brains. Food is the only source of it. Of course, it's going to feel like food is addicting, but guess what? Food is not addicting. Here's why. If you look at a typical addictive substance, alcohol or cocaine, whatever, if you take away the food, there are withdrawal symptoms. Well, guess what? With food, you need to eat it. Admittedly, this does kind of make it more complex because you can feel addicted to food, but you need food to live. But at the end of the day, there's no withdrawal symptoms. At the end of the day, we need food. It's huge. Okay. So you can check out the report down below for more information. And please just feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear, I know food addiction, there are smart people who disagree, and I'd love to hear your perspective. So that's my perspective. And with that being said, we'll call it a day. Namaste.